everybody. Hi, everybody. Good evening. Welcome to Africa Thrive Live. My name is Naomi Kirungu, based here in Nairobi, and I'm one of your hosts today. Really excited to have this conversation.
Hello, and my name is Irene Okoye from South Africa. Naomi and I represent the African Management Institute, and we are very privileged to be hosting this first edition of Africa Thrive Live 2021. Naomi, super exciting, hey?
Yeah, so go ahead, get comfortable, get your coffee. I hope you've put your kids to bed. We hope this hour today will have a lot of value and will help you as you start your business year this year. So if you're watching on LinkedIn, on YouTube, on Facebook, I see you guys. Welcome in. Drop us a line on the comment section. Please introduce yourself. Also introduce your business and tell us where you're joining us from. And as you do that, I'd like us to watch this quick video that introduces AMI to you. So let's watch this. Yeah, so if you're watching that and you're like, wow, what's Thrive? Allow me to give you a bit of context. So at the African Management Institute, abbreviated AMI, we exist to enable ambitious businesses from across Africa to thrive. And we do this through practical tools and training. So we do have a Thrive community where we have our entrepreneurs who've been through our programs, or even just generally entrepreneurs from across the continent. And we have them on Thrive. And this is a community where we provide resources and tools to help your business to thrive. Yeah. So in case you're not part of this growing community of over 10,000 entrepreneurs, please do join, and details will be displayed on your screen shortly. There are so many resources like you have seen on the screen on that quick video. We have newsletters with funding opportunities. We have networking events. We have mental and emotional wellness sessions. There's just a lot happening in that community. So don't miss out. Join Thrive. Yeah. And I just want to highlight two quick things happening in the community. So next week we are having a networking event, and this is just a virtual networking event, and we'll be having Sunday Silungwe. So Sunday is a Zambian entrepreneur, and his business, he's a social entrepreneur, and his business, which is in the agri sector, has been able to raise over $2 million in funding. So he'll be talking about how did he build a business and how did he raise that funding, and what strategy is he using to grow and expand his business even in this new year. So don't miss that. We'll be learning from Sunday and also networking, and it's happening next Thursday at the same time now. Yeah, so join Thrive, and the details will be again on your screen to be able to be part of that event and other resources and other events that we have for you. Yeah. So Irene, I don't know if we have a few shout outs for people telling us where they're joined, where they're tuned in from. Maybe we can.
Yes, Naomi, as Ashley pulls one of them is Sally Kitoke. Sally's watching us. Oh my goodness, from the UK.
Yeah.
Hey, happy New Year to you.
Yeah.
And thank you. So, Naomi, go for it.
Yeah, so do tell us where you're tuned in from. Tell us, introduce your business to us. We would love to get to feature and get to know some of the things that that you're doing. Yeah, so back to you, Irene.
So Naomi, before we go any further, hey, it's a new year and we haven't even said Happy New Year to our community. We have, if you're part of Thrive, you've probably seen these two faces and on our social media, but if you haven't, allow us to still say Happy New Year and thank you for joining us again. Thank you for joining with us in 2020. We know it was an interesting and challenging year for a lot of people. And, you know, just having made it this far, again, I'm just reminded of Snoop Dogg saying, you know, continue to pat yourself on the back and keep going. And something else that I just wanted to find out from you, Naomi, are there any interesting things that you did during the holiday?
Other than unwind and unpack, I think I tried not to think of work, but at the same time, I was just reflecting. I did a lot of reflecting, I guess, not necessarily setting New Year resolutions, but a lot of reflecting on what the year 2020 means, because I think it's one of those years that we'll never have such a year. And what did I learn? What am I taking out of it? And even with what's happening around the world, yeah, like in America, in Uganda, a lot of what does that really mean for us? So I did a lot of reflection. What did you do, Irene?
Yeah, I feel like I also did the same thing. It was a lot of unwinding and just being grateful for the small moments and each moment of just having family and being able to have good health and all that. And also just reflecting about everything that's happening around us and remembering to keep myself and my mental well-being in check, because that's really important. And I feel like going into 2021, a lot of people still are anxious because of, you know, we know that vaccines are being rolled out in different countries or there's strategies around how they're being procured and all that. But it's still a shaky time for business. And our topic tonight is about looking at what growth means for your business and what growth will look like in 2021. Sorry. I'm still doing part B of 2020, which is not right. So I have to correct myself and say 2021. And this, Naomi, we have to admit that there are anxieties when we talk about growth. And a lot of people are thinking, wow, some of us are still stuck in the different phases of, you know, shock and survival and disillusionment and all that. But I believe that there's still opportunities in 2021 that we can explore. And I'm glad that we have such an amazing panel tonight that will help us navigate through these issues. But something that I did that I enjoy a lot, and I think, Naomi, we need to actually approach Netflix for an endorsement, because I do watch a lot of shows on Netflix that I use for this series. And this is a spoiler alert.
People always text us and like, what was that show again? Like now, thanks to you, I'm watching a lot of Grace and Frankie. And it's 6 seasons. Oh my goodness.
See, I hope you're getting some value in all this, you know. So, you know, the pandemic has also brought some, you know, personal growth, because I do watch stuff that make me wonder, wow, what if we did things differently? So one of the shows that I was watching during the holiday when I had my Netflix and chill time was The Founder. So The Founder is a story about McDonald's, how the McDonald's, the franchise, the burgers and chips that we like so much. So it takes you through how the two brothers started the company and the precision of just getting, for them as a family business, all they wanted to do is to be the fastest fast food company. They wanted to have the shortest waiting time. So they started with having car hops outside. So basically you would get to the McDonald's outlet and then you would, you know, hoot, and a server would come to you and give you your food, your order. And then they realized, wow, the overhead costs on this were really immense. So they decided, no, we need to close our business and re-strategize. Wow, close your business and re-strategize. The interesting bit in the movie that I find as a highlight for me was, with just precision in mind, the brothers actually went to an actual tennis court and drew out a plan and got the servers, the kitchen staff, everybody on different boxes. Imagine that, Naomi. And then they had a timer. So they were like, okay, now imagine Irene is here for her chips and burger. Let's go. Until they got the timing so precise to about 30 seconds. Then they went to a contractor and said, okay, now this is the plan for the kitchen. This is what we want. And then eventually the movie introduces a salesman who comes to them and talks about franchising. And the show explores what the franchise did to negatively or positively affect the brand. So the brothers, I don't want to spoil it too much for everybody, but my point is it's very interesting what growth means to businesses and to entrepreneurs. What growth means to you is very different from what growth means to company B. So for instance, if growth for me means that I have another branch, it may be very different from what it means to Naomi. Naomi's growth would be, I want to actually increase revenue, or I want to grow my people. I want to grow the capacity of my human resource capacity. That's what I want to grow. And as we delve into growth tonight and looking at what growth means, I want you to reflect on what growth actually means to you. And the best way to do that, I believe, is to always ask yourself, why did I start what I'm doing? And that's what the brothers kept asking themselves. We started this as a family business and we want to make it that. We're not really after the revenue, which was quite different from Ray, the sales guy that is introduced in this show. So to get us started, Naomi, I know, like I alluded earlier, we have such an amazing panel and I'm very excited to get to learn some things from them. So over to you.
Yeah. So I think, Irene, just to reflect on your story and when you were telling it to me, I think one thing that stood out for me was when you said that eventually they lost their business and almost lost their name, and that was in the name of growth. And just when you said that, I thought, okay, so to them, growth was being able to execute in the least time. But to their other founder, it was being able to have McDonald's as we know it now, all over the world. So, and in the process, so that I do agree, growth means different things to different people. So for those who are watching us, I see Joseph, I see Yekini, welcome. I see Bade, I see Abdullahi joining on LinkedIn. You're all welcome. What does growth mean to you as we reflect that? So what does growth mean to you this coming year? Please tell us, So I want to have this conversation with two amazing ladies, remarkable women. So allow me to introduce them to us. And as I do that, or before I do that, remember that this is a conversation. So feel free to share your thoughts and questions as we go. And remember to tell us what growth is looking like for your business. So ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Noeline Kirabo from Uganda and Neliswa Fente from South Africa. Yay, let's put those emojis, hand claps.
I feel like that's the point. That's a part where we should have had some clapping emojis or something going on.
Yeah, the clapping emojis, the love emojis, like emojis, all of them. We see them, keep them coming. So Noeline, how about we start with you? Please introduce yourself to us. Tell us about your business.
Thank you. I'm very excited to be here. My name is Noeline Kirabo. I am based in Kampala, Uganda. I'm a family therapist by training and a social entrepreneur by passion. And I have two dimensions of my life. I do run a social enterprise where we work with marginalized youth, empowering them to start small and micro businesses so they can become financially independent. But I'm also into consulting where I focus on personal and business development. So in a nutshell, that's who I am and that's what I do.
Great. Nice. I have met you, but nice to meet you on behalf of the audience. Neliswa, how about you tell us a bit more about yourself and your business?
Awesome. Thank you, ladies. So nice to be in a panel full of ladies. Like on my panel, I just see the ladies. So I'm very, very happy to be here. Thank you for the opportunity. So hi, everybody. My name is Neliswa, and I am the co-founder of an organization called SpringAGE, now called SpringAGE by Deloitte. Essentially, what the business does is working with young people to come up with new ideas and insights that big corporations have. So we put together a group of young people and they come up with the insights and the ideas. We also have a product called the Millennial Board, which is a product that big corporations buy as a way to engage young people from within the business. I said just now that my business is now SpringAGE by Deloitte because it was acquired by Deloitte I want to say about 3 years ago. So that is the business now. And I'm also now an entrepreneur. So building one of the business units within Deloitte, thinking about how they can make a societal impact in the communities in which they at as Deloitte Africa. So that's me, and I'm very happy to be here.
Great. It's so lovely to have you. And Neliswa, you said something, just let us getting straight to it, that really resonated with a lot of people, that your business was sold to Deloitte. Yeah. So you had a business and then Deloitte literally bought it from you. Maybe you can tell us a bit more about that, how, because there's a lot of, as we know, lack of employment in our continent. How did you get into that position of what drove you into entrepreneurship, and how did you transition, or how did you even get acquired? Yeah.
Okay, wonderful. How much time do I have? Okay, so I guess I want to say that I got into entrepreneurship not because I wanted to be an entrepreneur, but because I wanted to solve a problem that I saw in the country. And the problem that we saw was a problem around young people not having a voice in our country. It was a time where we were seeing this youth bulge. There were lots of spaces where young people would be in those spaces, but they would be called tomorrow's leaders, which would mean just wait your turn, and your turn never comes, and you have all these people that are in charge, making decisions for our future. And obviously the high unemployment rate. In South Africa, the National Development Plan had just come out, which outlined a plan for South Africa for 2030. And so when we looked at that plan, we were like, oh, well, there's all these stakeholders, but where are the young people? So we said one Saturday, literally, we were like, what if we brought together our smartest, our most inspiring friends together and have a conversation about where Africa is going and what we want to do for our continent. So after we had that kind of conversation, we thought, what a waste it was to have the most incredible young people, our friends, and not do something that was tangible, not build something. You know, we're just talking and it wasn't like real. So that's how we started kind of building the idea of our business. Say, what if we created something that enabled a space of young people to come together, come up with new ideas, and be able to kind of share those ideas with corporations? And so that became our business model. We then became a youth-led innovation consultancy where organizations with a challenge, the challenge needed to have a societal impact. Otherwise, we didn't want to bother with it, because as young people, we want to make a positive difference and we want to make money, right? So we built that model, and we were then able to kind of sell that process to different organizations, big corporates in South Africa, where we would say, well, if you give us a challenge, we are able to find a way to come up with insights and ideas by young people. So fast forward to maybe 7 or 8 years of running the business. No, 6 actually. 5 or 6 years of running the business. Fast forward to that, we were asking ourselves the question around scale and growth. So the same question that you're talking about here. We were reading Entrepreneurship magazine, and there was a whole thing about scaling and growing your business. And one of the things that it had spoken about was build as if you're going to sell your business. So everything you do, think about it as if you're going to sell it one day. So we thought about marketing, we thought about IP. So as we're building our business, because our idea at that time was that we wanted to go to different markets, and we wanted to do our program in different markets. So we started building our process like that. We didn't know who we were going to go sell to, but we just had that at the back of our minds. What that really helps is that you build systems in your business that you would have never thought you would build, but you are building to sell, right? Even though you're not really going to sell. And so the question then we started asking ourselves is, how do we get to the rest of Africa? How do we do this in Kenya, in Nigeria, in Zambia, everywhere that we wanted to do? Because we're such a young continent, our business made sense in all different countries on the continent. So in asking ourselves that conversation, we started then thinking about, we can either do this on our own, which would be fine, and we would probably do it in an easier way with nobody giving us the rules, because, you know, as an entrepreneur, you get away with doing things your own way. Or we could think about somebody to partner up with. And I guess the partnering up bit for us was a bit scary, because as an entrepreneur, you love your business, it belongs to you, you want to keep it to yourself, and you're just like, oh, I'm not sure about somebody else being part of this thing that you've created. It's like your baby, right? And so we were like, you know, fundamentally, will we be still able to do what we want to do? Yes. And so why not partner up with anyone that made sense to us, right? And so I don't want to say by accident, but I guess it was by luck and by asking ourselves these questions. We bumped into the guys at Deloitte doing a presentation at one of the university's gigs here in South Africa. And the conversation they were having was around the future of consulting being about collaboration. And we were like, oh my God, that's what we do. And they were talking about that they're in different markets. And we were like, oh my gosh, we want to go there. So we had a conversation with this guy. And just to let you guys know, the gentleman who was speaking about this was the head of mergers and acquisitions for Deloitte. And so he was having this conversation, and we then went up to him and we were like, look, we want to do a joint venture with you, because that's what we thought we would do. We want to do a joint venture. We want to go into different markets, wherever you guys are, and let's find a way to work together. And so I remember them inviting us to a first meeting and kind of laughing and saying, who are you guys again? You want to have a JV with us? We're one of the biggest services firms in the world. What are you talking about? And so, you know, you need guts, right, to be an entrepreneur. So anyways, we started having a conversation about a joint venture, which we very realized quite quickly that wouldn't be the right route to take. And so we got to a place after 2 years, by the way, of having these discussions about an acquisition. So were we ready for our company to be acquired, and what would that mean? So the answer still said yes, in terms of we would still do what we were bought to do. And as big as the corporation was, they would let us run our little business inside it. And we were like, great. And that's the story. That's the short story of that.
Okay. And you cashed in, basically, like you cashed your business in.
Yes, we sold it 100% because we were happy to do that. And actually such a good story for young people that have a good idea. You know, from an idea, you actually sell it and you can make some money. And then you can carry on doing what you want to do and build something else maybe one day.
Yeah. I want to bring Noeline into the conversation, and I know you work a lot with young entrepreneurs as well, like the youth. So maybe you could tell us a bit about how did your background influence who you are today and how you got into business?
Yes, thank you. So my background has had a very huge impact on who I am today, what I do, and two perspectives: my personal experiences, but then also what it was, my experience working within the civil society space, which has been my working experience. So born and raised in Uganda, I grew up in Kampala, and the assumption about growing up in a capital city is the fact that you have every advantage and you have every opportunity, which is a myth. And experiencing life on the sidelines of a capital city exposed me to the differences, the haves and the have-nots, and the divides between people living within the same community but actually having different experiences. And so that began to stir up a desire in me to want to do something about bridging that gap. How do we bridge the gap between the haves and the have-nots? So for me, it's a passion that is always run within me, right from school, going through education, and thinking this is not right. And so right into adulthood, I began to think about how do we begin to that. At that time, I had no plan. I had no idea how to do it. And but I knew I had a passion. I knew it was not right. And so I got into civil society, which has been my working experience. And I realized that even within the space of wanting to create social impact, there were so many other gaps. And one of the things that caught my attention is the hopelessness that comes with unemployment. Uganda is one of the youngest countries in the world. And that means we have so many young people, we have a high school dropout rate, we have a high youth unemployment rate. And for me, unemployment is not just about financial lack or insufficiency, but it's about the loss of dignity, the loss of worth, the loss of direction that comes with it. And just wanting to defy the aspect that because you are a dropout, because you don't have a job, you are a second-class citizen. So for me, I am more driven by my passion to want to solve a problem, to want to create the change. And that's how I stumble onto my path. So working in the NGO space also exposed me to what goes on into creating systems, structures. How do you create systemic change? And so at what would have been at the height of my career is when I decided to quit. And at that time, I was looking for a space where I could create and innovate and still create that impact. And so I started working with young people because for me, it wasn't so much about let's create jobs as it is, let me help you find who you are. Let me help you find your path. Let me help you find your purpose and then make it profitable. And so that's a model I've been working with for the last 6 years. We're working with young people using entrepreneurship as a means to an end for helping people find a source of dignity, but also their sense of expression regarding who they are and source of purpose. And in working in this space, I realized that the communities where I grew up, the interactions I've had with young people, the experience in the social impact space opened me up to the possibilities. And then I also realized that, so when I started working in this space, basically we had a lot of non-profit approach that was more of a charity approach. And so the challenge was, how do you sustain it? And that's what drove me into the business arena, into the social enterprise space, thinking, can we marry social impact and profitability for us to be able to do the things we care about, but also ensure they are sustainable? And that is one of the things we're pushing with young people, to ensure that think about sustainability, think about profitability, but above all, bring yourself at the center of your business. What's your purpose and how is that aligned with the things you do? And for me, why I care about that is because I did have an opportunity to live in India for close to a year. And one of the things that caught my attention is that even the smallest business is generational. Somebody would tell you, this small business was started by my great-grandfather and it was passed on. And it got me thinking, why is this not happening in Uganda? Why is it that even medium enterprises, large companies, when the proprietor, when the founder dies, it seems like that's the end of the business? That began to start another question. Can we think beyond survival to begin to build generational businesses? And so that's how my path led me to where I am today.
Oh my goodness. I was about to say amen at some point. Because I am really blown away. I'm just going to say amen anyway, because I was going to say it. You know what really struck a chord with me was when she said that she works with young people to find their purpose and make it profitable. Mm-hmm. I mean, not many people are doing that, you know, like, and I was listening to your TED Talk and you were talking about how we are conditioned to go to school, get into a particular career and stick with it, whether your purpose is aligned, whether there's an alignment or not, stick to it, stick to the job until you die. You can't, apparently there's no marriage between your purpose and your passion. And I love what you're doing. It's really inspiring. I don't know if Neliswa wanted to add something.
No.
Okay, she was going to say amen. So
amen.
As we continue the conversation, please feel free to send us questions. And I'm sure Neliswa and Noeline will be happy to answer some of the questions that you will send us through. So something that I find quite interesting with both of your businesses is the fact that obviously you're working with young people, but it's very impact driven. And I'm wondering, and we had a debate about this when we were preparing this particular question, and we were talking about, is working with young people a trend or is it the future? I feel it's the future, but with it being the future, what do you believe that young people have to bring to the table? What value do young people have to bring to the table? I'll start with you, Neliswa.
Okay, I think the first thing we need to think about is context. Where are we? We're in Africa, and a majority of the population of the people that are living on this continent are young, you know, in comparison to European and that kind of thing. And then when you look at who are the people that have the most challenges? It's young people. And you're like, what? So it's a no-brainer that there are so many organizations that work with young people, because there's a lot of them and they are the ones with the most challenges. And also they are the future. If you really think about who is going to be living in that future, it's also obvious that it is the young people. And unfortunately, I mean, I don't want to say that you can't change the older generation, but you know, we've lived on this continent and we've seen it time and time again, and things not change. So if you work with the younger people, you know that you can infuse a different mindset and hope to those people that are going to be living in the future of this country, of this continent. So that's kind of the first thing. And what do young people bring? I think, first of all, we, as young people, we find ourselves in a world where it is easily connected. So we are now sitting on this call, for example, in Kenya, in Uganda, in South Africa. And I feel like pre-COVID, it was easier for young people to do this much more effectively, that we are easily or we are open-minded in terms of being able to connect with each other, because that's just the world we find ourselves in, right? Young people are technologically inclined. And that doesn't mean that it's because older people are not. It's just that you were born in an era where you had a phone, you had a laptop, so those things were, and obviously we're talking about people with those things, you were able to connect with those things so easily. So it's kind of like, that's the world that young people will find it. I think for me, young people don't know what they don't know, which is what I've always loved about working with young people, in that they don't bring you and tell you that 15 years ago it was tried, it didn't work, it won't work. They just tried anyways. They try new things. And I think not knowing so much is actually good, because a lot of people are finding themselves in a place where they have to unlearn a lot of things, right? So if you don't have a lot that you learn, you don't know, so you just learn what you're going with. And so you come up with fresh ideas, or you come up with a different perspective. You're living in this interconnected world. So that's why we chose to work with young people. And even when you look at young people in the workplace, so I did we did a program called the Millennial Board, where we worked with young people in corporate, and we would set up these millennial boards for these big corporations and stuff. And there were stats around young people. So more than 75% of workplaces are made out of millennials. And so if you have those people in the organization, why wouldn't you work with them? But what you find in corporate is that you have all these young people, but they all at junior levels. And the people that are making the decisions are the baby boomers, right? I mean, it's slowly changing and so forth. So we would create this thing where young people could come up with ideas and have decision-making powers by putting them on an advisory board that advised the CEO. So so for us, it was a no-brainer. And it was the people, if you think about who needs the most help, it is young people in our continent. And it doesn't mean you are choosing against the older generation. You're just choosing for young people. That's just how it is.
Awesome. Noeline, your take on it?
Definitely, I agree with Neliswa. Young people are not just the future. I believe the future is here, the future is now. A couple of, maybe 2 years ago, we talked about digital migration, and we thought it's something that is going to happen 10 years from now. COVID happens, and boom, everything is disrupted, and we just have to make the shift. And like Neliswa is saying, who is the most adaptable person? Young people. They quickly catch it and move with it. But let me dwell a little bit on the first bit of the question. Young people, yes, they are the future. They are also the present. For a country like Uganda, where over 70% of our young people are below the age of 30, you cannot afford to ignore young people. They're not just the future, they are also the present. So investing in young people is securing the future, is for us to be able to grow as fast as we can. And the thing about young people, what do they bring to the table? I like the adaptability that comes with being young, or quote unquote, the foolishness that comes with being young. You can try so many things because you have so little to lose, in that you can try ideas. If you fail, imagine starting a business at 16 and you fail. It's not the same thing as starting a business at 45 years. The risks are higher. So they're adaptable. They have a high appetite for risk. And that's something that we need in the marketplace, because oftentimes as senior management, as leaders, you are so cushioned in your comfort zone that you don't want anything rocking the boat. So when a young person comes in with quote unquote a crazy idea, you're thinking there's no way we're going down that route, but that's what you need to be able to grow. That's what you need to stay on the cutting edge, to stay relevant in the marketplace. And that's what young people are bringing onto the table. The other thing is that young people have energy. Now, when you look at the trend of the workforce, talking about the future of work, we are basically looking at a person who can multitask, a person who can do more than one thing. And that happens faster with a younger age. The older you grow, the more you want to specialize and focus on a few things. So as a young person, one of the advantages you have is your ability to be able to build mastery and specialty in different things. So that when you show up and you're offering a service, you're offering a product, or you're looking for a job, you're not just looking at one thing. You can do so many things. And that's an advantage you have, because also as a young person, you can learn so fast. There are many, you can learn multiple languages in a shorter time than an older person. You can learn so many skills at the same time than an older person. And that's an advantage that probably as young people have not mastered. We are sometimes been at this job for 15 years. But then you can learn what they have learned in 15 years in 5 weeks. Why? Thanks to Mr. Google. You can Google it, you can use YouTube, you can use Udemy, you can use Allison. Like there's everything all around you to teach you how to do it, even if it's overnight. You have an advantage that even if somebody has done it for years, you can master it in a shorter time. Because like Neliswa was saying, you're tech savvy. I don't expect my uncle to go and learn something on YouTube. They'll be like, what? How does that work? As a young person,
Noeline, I want us to shift gears a little bit and bring it, and as a disclaimer, let me just also say that I think youth is a matter of mindset. It's not an age thing. Like I have my mother who teaches me a lot of technology, yet I'm the one who's supposed to know more. So I think it's really a mindset thing. So if you're listening in and you wouldn't categorize yourself as a youth, I think youthness is a mental state of being. And I'm just reflecting back on what you said. Neliswa, I liked what you talked about as we bring it back to business. You building it, when you said build it as if you're selling it, that really resonated. And Noeline, when you talked about, I just wrote a note here about when you look back at your business, it's all about bringing dignity back. So that's really, so when we're talking about growth and setting goals, it's really a good having the end in mind, so to speak, not just having a business for lifestyle purposes. Yeah. So allow me to take a few audience questions, and as I do that, just to take you back to this year, to the last year, 2020. Noeline, maybe you can talk about yourself as an entrepreneur. And Neliswa, I know even within Deloitte, you work with businesses. How did the businesses that you see for you, Neliswa, how did they navigate or manage 2020? And what lessons are you seeing people are bringing into this year, generally in business?
Okay. First of all, I want to say sorry to Sally. We really didn't make you feel bad. I'm sorry Sally felt bad, but it was just talking about it from the youth perspective rather than saying older people are bad. So, okay, I think when COVID hit, it was a real shock to a lot of businesses, as it was a real shock to a lot of us as people in business. And so I think quite quickly, a lot of businesses had to think about how do they start doing things differently. And so I think the bigger businesses obviously were able to shift gears quite quickly because of resources and be able to do things differently. And I think what the big lesson about that showed big business how they can move quicker, because big corporations are slow. They slow big machines and they don't move as as quickly as they should. So, and I think at the beginning, especially in South Africa, of COVID hitting, it was just like, it disabled people from making decisions. So if you were an entrepreneur trying to sell to a bigger business, it was like people didn't know whether to make decisions, or what kinds of decisions they needed to make, so that was kind of like what was happening. And there was a lot of fear around, oh my gosh, how long is this thing going to last? We don't know. So it was all these mental things that were happening with big businesses. And I think, today I was actually part of a talk that was just looking at some of the trends in terms of big corporations and what they should be doing going into 2021. And this was looking at businesses that are doing something in society as well. So a lot of kind of like social enterprises. And it was interesting in that the trends were more softer skills. So the first thing was around like sustaining hope was what businesses had to do, because that was one thing that will keep you going, being able to sustain hope and have a sense of possibility. And I think if that rings true to big corporates, that should definitely ring something true to small businesses. And then there were kind of like 4 trends that were shared with us in that session, which was just mind blowing because of the softness of them, softness, if you know what I mean, right? So one was around how big businesses need to think about how do they build resilience, like in tough times, asking yourself as a business to say, okay, you're not asking about just financially, you're saying, how do I build resilience throughout my whole value chain, through my people, through the way that my product is done, everything. You are asking yourself that question. Another question was, how do we deal with inequalities? Because actually that does impact you as a business, right? The inequalities and the structural injustices that are happening and that are being showcased in our faces. We do need to think about those things as we're running businesses, because we are living in a so changing world. And what COVID has done is kind of like put a mirror up for us. And so when you run a business, you can no longer just be looking at yourselves, but you have to look at the whole world and what is happening. Of course, in other countries, and I think especially in our continent as well, we need to be thinking, businesses in terms of trends would need to think about climate, because that ultimately, it feels like something that's like long term, but that is something that ultimately have an impact in our businesses and the way in which we think about the businesses that we run. And just lastly, it was around anti-corruption and all of that stuff, because that stuff kind of comes alive even more when there's a pandemic. So that's kind of like the change we're seeing, in that like a lot of people are being introspective and thinking about these trends and these themes. And therefore, big businesses are starting to look at that in terms of the decisions that I spoke about at the beginning, that they have to be doing each and every day.
Yeah, and I'll do a quick plug there, Neliswa, when we were, what a participant told us from our Survive to Thrive program, which is a 6-month program that we have, was that this program helped my business to be resilient. Like I knew what to do. Like I got some grit, like I was not feeling paralyzed. So when you said that, that's something that we're doing. So I think a lot of businesses this year, our goal could be to build a more resilient or a gritty business. Noeline, let me just quickly transition to you. I know we have a few audience questions, so keep those coming if you have any specific question, guys. So Noeline, how did you navigate 2020 and what lessons are you bringing this year as an entrepreneur?
Thank you. So as an entrepreneur, but also as someone that is working in the incubation space for small and micro entrepreneurs, definitely contrary to bigger companies, the first instinct for small businesses is survival, especially in the face of COVID. How do we keep the lights on? How do we stay afloat? How do we keep operating at the most minimum level? So that was one of the biggest challenges. And so in terms of how did we navigate that as small businesses, as an entrepreneur, one of the critical things I had to do was think on my feet. I think about COVID, it was unprecedented. we never planned it. We never saw it coming. So you think it's going to last 3 months, then you realize it's 6 months, then you realize it's 12 months. So you literally had to think on your feet. And that called for a lot of resilience, like Neliswa was saying, but also to be able to be adaptable as a small business, to shift the mindset from this is how we've been doing business, this is how we deliver, this is how we go about stuff, to think about how else can we pivot. For example, in our space, some of the young business, the entrepreneurs we work with have had to literally think within the same space. Yes, we've been producing this, but if nobody's buying it and we have this machinery, what can we use it to produce something that people now are using? I'll give an example of one of the entrepreneurs that we work with. They basically run a cycling tour business. So they take people cycling to see different places. But in the midst of COVID, nobody was going cycling because we're under lockdown. And they realized they had all these, bicycles that were parked at their place. And one of their pivoting was to say, let's use the bicycles to begin now to make home deliveries. And they did make some good money just making home deliveries, because people weren't going to the market. Cars were not allowed to move at some point. So you had to cycle or walk. And I like that, the ability to think of what do we have and what do we do about it. So as an entrepreneur, that's an approach that we also had to use to critically think. The other thing that we had to do as a small business, or some of the small businesses that we support, was to basically downsize. For us, small businesses, downsizing was real, because you had to figure out, how do I reduce my operational costs without necessarily closing? And so that took on different ways. Typically in Uganda, for the longest time, we have been stuck in a culture of contracts, full-time employment. And I'd want to think it's very similar to Kenya, where people, when they think of a job, they think of a full-time job, or they think of a contract, I'm going to be working full-time and I get a monthly salary. And small businesses literally had to start thinking, can I pay you for just the work you're doing? Can I pay you per hour? Can I pay you for a day you come in? And I like the gig trend, because that's something that we're taking so long to adapt. But right now, that's what we're thinking, because you're thinking, what am I paying you for? And so also that calls for a high level of efficiency and productivity for the people that are working within small businesses. And then the other thing we had to think about critically that became very clear was the issue of health and safety. Like I said, oftentimes for small businesses, the focus is on survival, but now you have to think about, how do I ensure safety first? How do I ensure that we are healthy? How do I ensure my staff are safe? And just to give you a little bit of a sneak peek, most of our small businesses do not have the privileges of health insurance. So if your people are falling sick, that's a high cost for you as a business owner. So you want to ensure that your staff are in good health. And so for the first time, we began to think about, how do we ensure people are working in the most safe way that ensures we can actually deliver. And the aspect of, to echo what Neliswa was saying about self-care, that was very pronounced for me as an entrepreneur. Being at the forefront was exhausting, was strenuous. At some point, I felt like you're totally putting out one fire after another, and I had to be intentional about stepping off the dance floor to go to the balcony and just breathe, which feels like is a lot for an entrepreneur, because you feel like there's a lot happening on this dance floor, but you've got to be intentional about stepping away and allowing yourself to breathe and allowing yourself to recoup and allowing yourself to get centered again. So those are some of the things that were critical in sailing through 2020. And those are some of the lessons that I'm bringing forward into 2021. For me, self-care is still very important. Safety is very crucial. And it's one of the themes we've adopted: safety first before we get into anything. Are we all safe? Can we ensure that everybody can sail to the other side safely? Yes.
Are we each other's keepers, basically? I love that. Thank you. I'm not preaching, I promise. I just want to bring in the audience, but as I bring in the audience into the conversation, I want to touch on an element that Neliswa was talking about when we were telling Sally, you're not old. Sally, you're not old. There's a concept that I have come to love, which is the reversed mentorship. I think this is something that every business can leverage off young people. Basically, you've been in the industry for a longer time. You get somebody who's fresh, who needs experience, because there's a way of leveraging off each other. So it's not an isolation. We're a community. and each generation can teach the other generation something. So I believe that that's something, if we are to innovate, if we're to look for solutions for this future, who are the youth, I believe we need a combination of both, the youth and the new skills. So that's what I wanted to bring out. And Neliswa is shaking her head because, Neliswa, I had you speak at the HR in Daba. That's when I started following you on LinkedIn. So let me just come out straight and say, I had you talk about this concept and I was like, whoa, I was blown away by the concept of reverse mentorship, because it's really something that a lot of businesses can find value in.
Yeah, I think the reason why that's such an important thing is that you, especially in the workplace, you want to create a space where everybody is heard and everybody feels that they've got something to offer. So the whole hierarchy of saying, if you're older, therefore you are going to tell the young person everything, is kind of old school. And so the reverse mentoring talks about how we can learn from each other, irrespective of who they are, whether they're a woman, a man, gay, straight, younger, old. It's just literally thinking about things a little bit differently. And I think it kind of makes companies stand up a little bit and be like, oh, I didn't know I could learn that from this person. And it's not only about technology. Do you know what I mean? It could be about approach of how you do things. It could be about outlook in life, that we can learn from different people. So I think it's an incredible process and people should try it. And even somebody's thinking about an idea, just like to kind of put it out there and sell it to corporates as a way to engage with young people.
Awesome. I love that. All right. So some shout outs. We have Abdullahi, who's watching from Kenya. Joseph Gianni from Mpumalanga, South Africa. Thank you for tuning in. Yekini, I feel like I know you, Yekini, already. Thank you for always being so loyal and tuning in. Happy New Year to you and wishing you well as well. Thank you. Bade, I hope I pronounced your name right. If not, I am very sorry. Great evening to everybody and nice to be here. And then we have Gautam, who is watching us from India. Thank you. And of course, you can access the content that we're talking about on YouTube. So feel free to subscribe to our YouTube channel. I just sounded like an influencer. Oh my goodness.
You did. And you have this like going on with your whole StreamYard.
And Irene,
by the way, we love influencers.
And Irene, please, now can we do a disclaimer? Stop stalking our guests on LinkedIn. All our guests are like, oh, I had them somewhere that I didn't see them. Like you had them somewhere.
Always amazing people. Yeah, it's always amazing people who come on this platform. And we've got Edward from Kigali. Hello, from that side of town. We have Patricia Maingi. Patricia, where are you watching from? I think you're in Kenya, but I never know. You could be anywhere in the world. There's so many shout outs, Naomi. I'm going to have to let you read some of them. But there was a question for Neliswa, which was from Abel, who's tuning in from YouTube. Ashley, if you could pull that question. And the question is, how did you merge with a big corporation without being taken advantage of in terms of decision-making process? That, I think, is a vital question a lot of people ask themselves.
So in terms of, if I understand that question correctly, is how did I work with big corporates and making the decisions that I wanted to, instead of them infusing their decisions to us?
If you manage to maintain some sort of autonomy in the decision-making process, that they didn't bulldoze you in the negotiations.
Cool, interesting question. I think, so the first thing is that we've had a lot of people that we've dealt with in the past that would just not even take us seriously because we were young. When we started the business, we were much younger as well. And so I actually recall someone saying that I can't imagine giving 10 million rand to 2 young girls. And he loved the concept, but his idea of just like giving money to us was just like, he couldn't even imagine it. And the worst part was that he said it, And so I think when you find people like that, you just you just decide not to work. You need to know when to walk away, because sometimes you feel that you really want the gig or you really want the money. But one of the lessons that I learned was that the way that the sales process goes is the way in which your relationship is going to be. So the way you sell is the way it's going to be. The interaction, if it's hard, if it's, you just feel it. You like the way that we were selling to these guys, it was just not easy. And so you just learn to walk away from some things, even though it's very hard, guys, because you need the money, right? So you just like, oh, can I just go with it? But if you think about the heartache, you just say no. And I just felt like sometimes you were working with people who just didn't understand the entrepreneurship journey. So it would just be so difficult to get through to them. But I think value. So you just show your value in the conversations, and almost don't put the fact that you're young or a woman or black or whatever in the forefront, and rather put the value of what you're going to have and talk about that. And so if people don't see value in what you have, then you walk away. It's easier said than done, I know, but that's how we navigated it. I mean, I won't say that we didn't meet people who tried bulldozing us and, as you were saying, like who tried kind of like, thinking that you don't know your game. But there's no one who knows and understands your business more than you. So even if you find yourself in that situation, you're self-doubting yourself, just remember that you know your business more than anybody else. And so there is no way that that person could impact whatever it is that you're trying to sell. So, yeah.
Awesome. Just one quick one. I will take this very quickly because we're running out of time. One for Neliswa, and then I'll hand over to Naomi. This is from Shada. So are you open to partnerships and collaborations with people in the youth space, sort of expand your traction and offering repertoire?
Yeah, absolutely. And hit me up on LinkedIn. I will respond, ask Irene, and and then
she's very kind.
No shade there.
If we find an opportunity where it makes sense for us to work together, of course we're open to that kind of stuff. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Cool. Noeline, I want to bring you in because you said something about wellness. So we recently launched an insight report at AMI because we've worked with thousands of entrepreneurs. So we was just reflecting on 2020 and we launched a report, and we saw that growth for a business sort of is like two sides of a coin. So on one hand, there are these great things where you have revenue, traction, recognition, and you're on TED Talks. And for Neliswa, you're bought over by Deloitte. So that's one end.
Sorry, she's also advising on the World Economic Forum. We didn't get into that, but now we continue. According to Google.
So there's that.
Oh wow! What is that new one?
So there's that. So back to my coin of growth. So there's that one side, which is the good side. And then there's the other flip side of the coin where there's a lot of psychological challenges, like emotionally and mentally. And I think we saw that a lot in 2020, that entrepreneurs face, because running a business is hard on your family, on your emotions, on your mental health. So for you, Noeline, and because you're in that space, of coaching others, and you talk about how it's important for you, how do you focus on your own emotional and mental wellness as an entrepreneur, and what advice sort of do you have for other entrepreneurs? But first, what do you do?
Okay. First, I'd like to echo the fact that business is not a vacuum. It's not a vehicle. Business is about people. It's run by people for people. It's more like a democratic statement. For people, by the people, and at the end of the day, sometimes we forget that it's actually business is about people who are driving the value and delivering it to other people who are able to, translate it into a transaction. Then we become profitable. And so for me as an entrepreneur, it's very important for me to remember that even as I think about other people, I like the analogy of the air flights where they tell you, in case of an emergency, put on your oxygen mask before you help your neighbor. And sometimes entrepreneurs, we are doing it the other way around. We're trying to put the oxygen mask on everybody else and we're forgetting ourselves. And for me, it's been learning the fact that I cannot help other people, quote unquote, I can't save the world if I can't save myself. So that sounds almost selfish, but it's actually not selfish, because it's important for you as an entrepreneur. It's important for me to know that I am in the right state of mind, that I'm in good health. One of the transformational conversations I've ever had with one of my mentors in the early stages when I just started my first organization, and I was sleeping about 4 hours, getting 4 hours of sleep, and that was like for a whole year, working Monday to Monday. I never took leave. I never took a day off. And you know, it's one of those things you hear when you're starting a business. They tell you, you know what, if you're going to make it, you're going to push yourself, you're going to work very hard, you're going to put in all the extra time. And so I just had my first burnout experience, and I'm having a check-in conversation with my mentor. And he asked me a question and said, so where do you want to be in 5 years? Where do you want to be in 20 years? Where do you see your business being in 50 years? And I was so excited, ranting about all these things I wanted to do. And at the end of it all, he looks at me and says, well, if you keep going the way you're going to outlive your vision, or your vision is going to outlive you. Like, you're going to be dead before you even reach the 5th year. And for a moment, I froze. I felt like that was the most rude statement I'd ever heard. But it was also my wake-up call to realize that as much as I cared about this vision, as much as I cared about this business, whatever I was doing, I needed to have the ability to run with a vision. And so for an entrepreneur, it's important to know that taking care of yourself is not wasting time. Because when you are sick, the other wisdom I got from my mom is the fact that you can make all the money you want, but you can't buy life. And again, that was another light bulb moment. So for me, those have been transformational conversations. So how do I take care of myself? One of the things I invest in is support systems. I have a core support system, people around me who are not asking me about business, who are not asking me about the title, who are not asking me about all these things, who are literally going to look me in the eyes and say, how are you? Now, the reality is sometimes entrepreneurs, sometimes leaders will struggle because that's a lonely place. Oftentimes people are coming to you and they're asking you for answers, for solutions, for direction, for strategy, that you get into an autopilot moment where you think you're supposed to be troubleshooting all the time. I've been in a place where people ask me how I am, and auto response, I'm fine. And then you ask me the second and the third time, and I'm like, I actually don't know how I am, because I hadn't stopped in a long time to simply ask, how am I doing? So having a support system for people that hold that space for you. I've had friends that create a safe space for me, and they say, you know what, you don't have to be super, you don't have to be strong, you don't have to be cool, you don't have to be anything, just be you. And for me, that's been the most liberating space, being able to come to that space and just know I'm human, and just know I can share, I can break down, I can be vulnerable, and yet trust that that vulnerability can also be held safely in that space. So support systems, finding safe spaces, then unplugging. I've had to learn to unplug. We unplug differently, but you've got to find what works for you, whether it's yoga, meditation, whatever it is. As an entrepreneur, it's very important that you learn to unplug. And don't unplug after 12 months. Don't unplug after 6 months. Simple analogy. Imagine we use laptops. Imagine if you're using your laptop and you just never shut it down. It's either going to just forcefully shut down, or at a time when you don't want it to shut down. And that's the same thing with our bodies. You can choose the time for it to unplug, or it will choose its own timing. And oftentimes that timing is not the right timing for you. So for me, those are some of the things that I do to ensure that my mental health is in the right place. And then also the last thing I've learned to do is to listen to my body. Now, for all of us, you know your body better than anyone else. You know when you're feeling stressful, you know when you're triggered, you know when you're feeling anxious, but oftentimes you don't stop to listen. So being able to stop and ask, what's my body telling me? When I get a headache, I no longer get a painkiller. I stop and ask, what's my body telling me? Is it lack of sleep?
Yeah.
Is it lack of water? Is it stress? What's my body telling me? And these are some of the things we can do as entrepreneurs.
Yeah, Noeline, I really like what you've said, especially about sleep. I don't know, I've been a crusader in the office. Do I have it here? No, I don't. I have this book. Like I've been telling everyone, we've been sort of like glorifying lack of sleep. The fact that you wake up in the morning, you're going to the gym and like you're on the hustle and you're not having 8 hours of sleep. So the fact that like even scientifically, it's a really interesting book. It's called Why We Sleep by Matthew someone. I wish I had it. Oh, it's here. Trust me. Let me just show you. Here. Can you see? Why We Sleep. So it's such an amazing book, and for me it was really a light bulb moment. The fact that overworking and glorifying lack of sleep is not really a trend, and we really need to take care of ourselves first. Yeah. So Neliswa, how about you? How do you sort of take care of yourself, your well-being? Any tips?
First of all, I just want to say on the sleep thing, I've got an 8-month-old baby, and he is not sleeping.
No, they don't.
I think you need to read that book.
Yeah, he needs to read the book.
Anyways, so it's interesting, but I think one of the things that I know I need to make time for Nelly time. It's like what Noeline was talking about, in that you need to find not like an end of the year, then you're going off and you're going on a big holiday, but within your weeks, your time, finding time for yourself. So I try and meditate whenever I can, when I didn't have a very small baby, and find those moments where I can meditate, right? And in that time, it's just Nelly time. I'm alone, and my husband knows about it. He even will ask me, saying, when are you having Nelly time? You haven't had any Nelly time. Even on my birthday, he will say, well, we're going to spend your birthday with your friends, but you need to have some Nelly time. So I think it's about like, with your partner and with people that are around you, knowing that you have to create a space for yourself that they can respect as well. And so I do a bit of that. And I think it's been a blessing, but COVID has enabled me to start exercising at home. So I found a nice YouTube thing that I follow called Body Projects, and it's really easy and it's low impact, and I really enjoy it. So I just go on and do that. In good moments I read, but having a small baby, not right now, but when the time is right, I'll go back to read.
They grow.
Yeah, they grow.
They eventually grow. I'm saying they eventually grow and they sleep, and you go back to.
That's true. And you know what? I am. I need to give him the book, but I love the time that I'm in as well. So it's about appreciating where in your life you are. So I know that when I was starting my business, I was really younger, single, and it was just so much easier for me to run and do the things that I needed to do, right? So just being conscious and being kind to yourself, and know that, this is where I'm at right now, is also what I do. And I think quite recently, our family goes on little walks. So every day we go on a little walk, even if it's just like 15 minutes and back. It really helps us to unwind, because we're all working from home. You don't get an opportunity to drive in your car and be by yourself, so you from doing your work at home, and then it's like dinner, and then it's this, or maybe it's friends, or whatever the case is. So we take these little short walks as an opportunity to get out, and then just try one thing at a time. A friend of mine said, this year is 2021 day at a time. And I loved it, because I was like, you know what, it really is about that this year, where we are taking everything one day at a time. And that helps me in kind of taking care of myself.
That's awesome. So what I'm getting from both of you is basically create whatever works for you as an entrepreneur to stay mentally strong and to take care of yourself in 2021. So really quickly, Naomi's given me a timeline. She's like, really quickly. I just want to get tips, just a tip. If there's one or two, I'm actually going to take one tip from each one of you on what entrepreneurs can do in 2021 I love how you said it, but if there's anything else, Neliswa, you'd like to add, is basically what is the one thing they can do this year to to leverage off opportunities that they're going to get in the year. We're thinking very positively, and we're hoping that this is going to be a year of opportunities as well. So what is that one thing?
Okay, so for me, I think there's a lot of things, but I think one thing is that we suppose everybody has access to this virtual world that we're living in. I think it presents an opportunity for us to go beyond our borders, because I got a friend who called me the other day, and he happens to be a CEO of a big company, and he's like, look, Nelly, I'm looking for an organization that can help me with this. And actually, they don't have to be in London. They can be anywhere because of this virtual world, and we have these virtual conferences. So actually, if I get someone from Africa, they're cheaper, actually, as opposed to what they spend on with their pounds, right? So I would say people can try and think about the opportunity that COVID has presented to us, especially in this in this technology world where we can interconnect. If you're doing talks, don't just think about South Africa, think about the world being your oyster. If you are doing these kinds of things, as we have seen, people from India, people from wherever, it's really, really awesome. So I would say take those opportunities and take those opportunities and opportunities to learn, because there are so many of these open platforms that are everywhere in the world, and you can be part of them just because of how the world is organized now. I'd just say take those opportunities.
Awesome. The world is your oyster. Noeline, over to you. What's that one tip that you want to leave entrepreneurs with for this year?
For 2021, I would say stay on the learning edge, not the cutting edge. So we've oftentimes talked about staying on the cutting edge. I would say stay on the learning edge. It's very critical because we're living in unprecedented times. There's so many things are changing, so many things are evolving. Staying on the learning edge is going to enable you continuously pivot, learn, improve, and create. What's the new information? And as you pivot, keep learning, keep improving. Don't seal it. Don't get into a place where you feel like you have sealed the plan, you have sealed the strategy. Leave room for improvement and keep pivoting as you go along.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Wow. We've had such amazing guests tonight. If you're wondering where you can connect with them, please look them up on LinkedIn, learn from my example, and I'm sure they'll respond, send them requests, find out what their businesses are doing. Thank you so much, Neliswa and Noeline, for sharing so many tips and very, very, very awesome antidotes that entrepreneurs can use going forward. Naomi?
Yeah, and also thank you all for indulging us. Thank you for being, for watching, and even for those who will watch this later. They happen, Africa Thrive Live happens every third week of the month, every third Thursday of the month. And we have it at 8 o'clock East Africa time, that's 7 South Africa time, or 6 o'clock West Africa time, 5 o'clock GMT. Yeah. So remember to join the Thrive community. In case you're not part of the community, the details are on the screen. You'll get to see resources, funding opportunities, programs, a lot of things that you can leverage on as you sort of put gears to grow and take opportunity with your business this year. And I also want to remind you to join us next Thursday evening for our monthly networking session. So you can still visit the Thrive page to get those details. So that's where we'll be able to meet face to face, since that is on Zoom. It's not on Facebook or YouTube, it's on Zoom. So to get details, go to the link that Ashley will be displaying on the screen shortly. That's www.africanmanagers.org/Thrive. Yeah. So we have come to the end. Thank you all so much for joining us. And until next time, we have been your hosts, Irene and Naomi. Have yourselves a wonderful evening. Take care.